Welcome to The Matt Bernier Show.
What's happening? The Matt Bernier Show here, Friday, April the 28th, 2017. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. If you're watching this thing live on live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter or Facebook, thank you for doing so. If you check it out, podcast version, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Plenty of ways for you to find this show out. Here we are, 8 days until the first Saturday in May, the Kentucky Derby, 7 days out from the Kentucky Oaks. Looks like all the fields are starting to come together. You're getting all of your final sort of preparation, your final workout, serious works anyway, for all of your Derby contenders as well as your Oaks contenders. Obviously, if you are listening to this or you're watching in a different fashion, you may want to check out live.drf.com. All of this week, you're going to have all the latest news and nuggets. If you're watching on live.drf.com, obviously right below the video player, you have the scroll with the news feed. You get all the good stuff from all of our writers and reporters all over the country, making sure that everyone's coming into this race, the first Saturday in May, the Kentucky Derby, in as good shape as possible. We'll dive into that in a moment. After we come back from the first break, we're going to bring in Peter Thomas Fornatale, the DRF tournament editor, talk about a bunch of different things. Obviously, Derby is going to be involved. But earlier this week, the announcement of the introduction, anyway, of the DRF World Championship of Handicapping. We're going to talk to Pete a little bit more about that. We'll find out all the nooks and crannies, the idiosyncrasies of whatever goes on there. And we'll dive into the Derby a little bit as well. I'm going to ask him what he thinks about my value line for the Kentucky Derby, and that's where we're going to start this show here today. Again, 8 days out. This is pre-post position draw. This is pre-final workouts for some of these horses. Let's take a look at the graphic if we could. If you're watching, if you're listening, I'll just kind of give it to you right in order. And this is in order as far as their overall point total is concerned. Again, a value line, it has to add up to 100 points. And this is just what I would consider fair value from a win standpoint, not from the exotics, because as we know, you can have long shots clunk up for third and fourth and even second sometimes, but that doesn't truly indicate what at least your value is for them on the win end. From a win standpoint, Gervin, I give a 32-1 shot. Classic Empire 8-1, Gormley 16-1, IRAP 99-1, Irish Warcry 6-1, Thundersnow 13-1, Always Dreaming 8-1, Gunnavera 9-1, Practical Joke 32-1, J-Boys Echo 32-1, State of Honor 99-1, Taprit 32-1, Malagasy 99-1, Hence 32-1, Fast and Accurate 99-1, McCracken 6-1, Battle of Midway 99-1, Patch 32-1, Battalion Runner 32-1, Untrapped 99-1. Now you're probably wondering why some of these horses have just astronomical odds, and it is simply because trying to get a true value line out of a 20-horse field is not the easiest thing to do. You're going to have some good horses that are giant numbers, but I think that's the beauty of the Kentucky Derby, and that's why it can often pay as well as it does. In a year like this, I don't have any real strong opinion, other than, I shouldn't say that, as more and more time is going, I'm kind of narrowing it down to 2 or 3 horses, and you can tell, we can just leave the value line up there. At this point, I mean, Irish Warcry at 6-1, I'm leaning toward him. We'll wait and see ultimately what his final workout ends up looking like. I believe that's going to happen tomorrow. I like McCracken. It sounds like he's working up, breathing fire down at Churchill Downs. My concern becomes the sort of pace dynamics of this race. Where is he going to be positioned? Is he going to have too much work to do? Gervin. That's really kind of been the news of the week thus far. He has a quarter crack. They're dealing with it. He's going to work, I believe, on the treadmill in the pool this morning, and then he's going to try to have his final breeze tomorrow morning. I had him a little bit higher as far as price is concerned, or I should say lower, depending on how you want to look at it. I had him about 16-1 earlier in the week, and unfortunately, I had to make a little change just because last thing you want to have is any sort of real hiccup coming into the Kentucky Derby. And really, the X factor in the race for many people is Classic Empire. Because if Classic Empire does what he's capable of doing, and some people liked the Arkansas Derby a little bit more maybe than I did, you could make him much shorter than the 8-1 that I have him pegged at. You can see, though, I have, 5 horses in single digits, and that is if all 5 of them decide to run. We'll find out if there's an issue between now and then. It sounds like, again, for the 5 that I like anyway, single-digit odds, everything seems to be going all well and good. Always Dreaming seems to be acting a little bit more, let's say, professional. He was a little bit of a nut job earlier in the week, but apparently had a big blowout earlier today, half mile or 5/8 of a mile. So it's going to be interesting to see. We've got a long way to go. This is a tentative value line for myself with the top 20 in order, and there are going to be defections, it sounds like, as well. It sounds like Malagasy, there will be a decision made in the next 24 to 48 hours Thunder Snow. I mean, it's still, I don't know that it's 100% that he's running. If he doesn't, obviously the line will change a little bit and you'll get the inclusion of some other horses. I believe the Bubble Boy right now is looking at Lee. If he gets in, I don't necessarily like him to win, but I certainly think he's one that can round out some exotics. This is going to be a point of conversation or a topic of conversation when we come back from break and we bring in Peter Thomas Fornatale, the DRF tournament editor. We'll start off talking about some tournaments, then we'll dive into some Derby talk here on the Matt Bernier Show. Stay with us.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. California Chrome. All the way to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Back here on the Matt Bernier Show, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter and Facebook as far as social media is concerned. About 12:06 on the East Coast, 9:06 on the West Coast. Now we bring in my good friend, the DRF tournament editor, Peter Thomas Fornatale. He's also the host of the DRF Players Podcast. For those of you that listened on Spreaker just a few minutes ago, this man's pulling double time here for us. Pete, happy Friday, and how you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Matt. What an exciting week. We've got the Derby coming up, big things going on in the world of DRF tournaments, opening day at Belmont, good time of the year to be a horse player.
Yeah, opening day at Belmont, closing day at Keeneland, tomorrow night opening day at Churchill Downs underneath the Twin Spires. Spring is certainly in full effect. Before we dive into the, let's say, the racing side of things, we had some big news earlier this week breaking as far as tournaments are concerned, particularly in the DRF tournament family. The introduction or the unveiling of the DRF World Championship of Handicapping. You as the tournament editor for the Racing Form know more about this than anyone. Give us some details about this World Championship of Handicapping.
Well, I can sum it up in 5 words. $1 million, no takeout. That's the idea of this new DRF World Championship of Handicapping, going to be taking place exclusively online January 27th and 28th, 2018. It's limited to 200 spots. The spots are worth $5,000 each. That's how it's $1 million tournament, assuming a full field. Folks are very excited about it. We've got a qualifying process that's just launched on tournaments.drf.com with some very friendly player favorable ratios where you can play in a round 1 event where 1 in 7 players advance to a second round where 1 in 10 get their way to the big dance and win their $5,000. Alternatively, you can just put up your $5,000 and eliminate takeout altogether. The finals have some fun horse player friendly wrinkles as well. The idea is that 200 will begin, 100 will advance to the second day on Sunday, and then that 100 will be cut again midway through Sunday, allowing the final 50 to play for the million. The thinking behind this is to keep it from just being all about picking big prices or where having one big price can get you all the way there. The idea is to create an extra element of strategy, reward players who pick winners but understand the value of catching price horses as well. It's going to be a lot of fun, a unique test, and I think it's going to be a great event and hopefully a staple in the handicapping contest world going forward.
200 spots limited to the DRF World Championship of Handicapping. Just for reference sake, we're dealing with $2 win place?
It's a $2 win place format. For the finals, we're looking at 15 races each day. I laid out that 2-stage qualifier. There'll also be more straightforward one-day qualifying events there as well. Ratios are going to be a player favorable 1 in 26 as opposed to sometimes you'll see up to 1 in 65 online. Another cool thing that I probably should have mentioned already, you can get involved for as little as free. Right now on tournaments.drf.com, we're going to have options each of the 3 days to play into feeders, even to win in to the big contest we're going to be having on Derby Day, the sort of round 2 contest, the grade 1 qualifier for for free. So go on DRF tournaments, check out all your options there, and let's get the ball rolling.
$5,000 as far as a buy-in if you don't get in via feeders. $1 million, no takeout. I know you had written an article earlier in the week, and any of you that are watching or listening that aren't familiar with Pete's blog, you should definitely check that out, drf.com. As far as player reaction, has this been well received thus far?
Extremely. I've had a lot of players call in and say that have, even with expectations that if they're correct, let me just say my mind will be blown, and I'll be thrilled about what they think the eventual purse of this tournament could be, saying they expect there to be 300, 400, 500 players who'd be interested in playing something like this. It's been very gratifying. Eric Moomey, tournament champion in his own right, was among those who went on record with a quote about how great it is to have an online event that can compete in terms of purse with the biggest on-site events, and congratulating DRF for being so player-friendly in terms of not only the ratios in these contests, but also the no takeout.
The beautiful thing about the online format, and I'm guilty of stealing this from your show on Tuesday when you and Jonathan were talking about it a little bit, the beauty of this entire thing is you can play this thing anywhere, considering it's an online event, whether you're playing at a racetrack or you're playing from home.
That's right. It's going to be Pegasus Day on that Saturday. I expect there'll be people there with their phones or their laptops enjoying a fantastic day of racing and competing online in the tournament. So it's nice. It removes that barrier to entry. Nothing against on-site tournaments. They're fantastic, and I'm going to continue to encourage people to go and check those out, whether they're in at Santa Anita or Keeneland or Las Vegas or wherever. But it's nice to have an option that you can play from the comfort of home as well. And it's just another way I feel like the DRF World Championship of Handicapping fills a void in the marketplace.
Joined by DRF's tournament editor and the host of DRF Players Podcast, Peter Thomas Fornatale, on the Matt Bernier Show. Pete, let's transition out of the contest world for now, and let's talk a little bit about the Derby. We've only got 8 days left until the first Saturday in May. There are hopefully going to be 20 that ultimately load into the starting gate. I had sent you my value line last night. There have been some workouts, and as I had said at the top of the show, things can change obviously between now and then. With the line that I gave you last night and the line that I have shown and sort of read off to the people here earlier this morning, give me an assessment right now. Where do you think I'm a little high? Where do you think I'm a little low? Or am I relatively close?
Well, I'll tell you, there's some eerie similarities between what you've put here and when Jonathan Kinchin and I were just playing a little round of buy, sell, hold on the DRF Players podcast a few months ago. And that mostly has to do with the top of the market. I love your 6-1 on Irish War Cry. I love your 6-1 on McCracken. I feel like having a little bit of a backup to 8-1 for Always Dreaming makes sense. Let me talk to you specifically about that line. Always Dreaming relative to those other two. Are your concerns, I mean, obviously that's making him a major contender. It's not like you're against the horse, but the fact that you have him pitched back beyond those other two, does that have to do with the Todd Pletcher factor? Does that have to do with the pace numbers he's run recently? Why do you have him there?
Well, and I've been fortunate to go on your show a couple times over the past few weeks. The big thing for me with Always Dreaming, if he moves forward, he is a major player and arguably the most likely winner. And I know that Jonathan is very, very interested in Always Dreaming. The more and more I looked at it, the more I'm concerned. Did Always Dreaming fire his shot in the Florida Derby? I'm not suggesting he can't run at all, come next Saturday afternoon, but did he peak a little too early depending on what figures you look at? He's still need to improve if he's going to win this race, but there's just a part of me that wonders, and who knows, I could be entirely wrong. Maybe I'm discounting this horse a little bit too much, because I thought he was awesome in the Florida Derby. You can make the case he was the most impressive final Derby prep winner winning the Florida Derby. I just wonder, Pletcher going to Churchill, did he fire his shot too early? Did he really run that big race down in the Florida Derby at Gulfstream? That's the only reason I knocked him down a few points.
It's a fair concern, as we've seen that happen in the past. I'm having a lot of trouble separating those three at the top of the market. And it's funny because I don't disagree when people out there, sharp people, have said this is the year we're going to see a $30 Derby winner. But then when I'm forced to make my picks, I'm sort of zeroing in down at the top of the market. So I guess that's my contrarian way of looking at this year's Derby. If I were going to pick some holes, now, this is a horse that I could just be wrong about, but Gunnevera is a horse who I've had a little bit of trouble warming to. I'd probably want a higher number personally than what did you hang on him, 9-1?
9, yes, 9.
And talk to me about your love for Gunnevera.
Well, it's more a matter of, I felt like this was a horse 2 starts back. Obviously, he had everything go his way. The pace scenario set up beautifully. Javier learned from the first time he was on him, take him back, make that one run, and he kicked on very, very well. The most recent start, going into it, I just kind of felt like, as long as you don't throw in a complete dud, I don't need you to win the race. I know you're capable of running fast enough. Just come with a decent run at the end, and then particularly with the way that race was run, the fractions look relatively honest, but I wonder if it was a little bit of a softer pace than it looks just at face value. And I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I haven't seen the Timeform U.S. pace ratings. And the fact that he did kick on a little bit at the end, obviously it was no match. He wasn't close to Always Dreaming, but I just kind of think it was a very, very good prep leading in to the Kentucky Derby, where he's probably going to be ready to go for the best race of his life. Whether it's good enough or not, I don't know. I've had enough people ask me, friends, family, you name it, say, oh, you know, who do you like, who do you like? I go, it's a very, very tough year to say who you truly like, unless you're just in love with a horse, which I can honestly say I'm not. I'm warming up to Irish War Cry, but I've said to many people, I think whether he's good enough or not, I think Gunnevera is going to run his race. I won't be surprised if he runs. I put it this way, I'd be stunned if he ran up the track. I wouldn't be stunned if he won. I think you're looking somewhere between 1 and 5 is where he finishes.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying about Gunnevera makes sense. I think looking at this odds line relative to what I think the betting is going to be, he might end up being sort of your top pick. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe the horse is going to be bet more, but he's currently in the UK at 16. That feels right to me, or maybe even a little low compared to what he's going to be on the tote. So I do think he's one who you might end up with on a lot of your tickets based on your odds line. There's a horse here on the line that's also worth talking about, because I feel like the 13-1 you have him at could be high or low depending on information we're going to glean in the next few days. And I'm talking, of course, about Thunder Snow. There's been this sort of odd back and forth of if he's going to run in the race, if he's not going to run in the race. We were talking about this on the podcast today. Very interesting to see when he hits the ground, gets out of quarantine, how he looks and how he feels going into the race. I believe there's a case to be made that the prep race in the UAE Derby was pretty darn strong. And had he come here with all positive vibes, I'd be looking seriously at him as a single-digit contender. The Hamlet routine, will he, won't he come, coupled with the fact that if he gets off the plane and isn't impressing people, I feel like I'd blow that number way out. So he's one I just think is very volatile. Do you see it similarly, and you put the 13-1 sort of as in the middle of that, or are you just calling him 13-1 on his straight merits?
Yeah, 13 straight away, simply because of all the things. You've got to ship, you've got to go through quarantine, but I wouldn't argue with anyone that would make him any shorter. I also wouldn't argue with anybody that made him longer, considering how poor overall the record of the UAE horses shipping over here has been. But boy, I'm with you. I think he came out of a very live race in that UAE Derby. I just think it was very strong this year. I think there was legitimate quality in there, and he beat a good horse in Epicaris, who we may or may not see in the Belmont. I just feel like 13, whether he is feeling great or not, I think 13 is pretty straightforward. I'm not kind of swaying it one way or the other depending on how he feels, for better or for worse. I just feel like that's sort of a true representation. And more so, if there's going to be a winner from UAE, isn't this the year that it's going to happen?
It seems like it could be, especially with a horse who's shown this type of ability, not only in his grass races, but also on the dirt in Dubai. So I'm very intrigued by that horse. I just want a little bit more positive information. Probably, I'm going to guess the hardest horse. Well, maybe you tell me. I'm guessing Classic Empire was a very difficult horse to hang a number on. I think the number you put on him is probably exactly the same as I would have if you put a gun to my head and made me. But it's kind of tough because I feel like there's another way of reading it where this is a horse who should be 4-1 or he should be 20, and it's hard to know where to put him on that continuum. How'd you come up with the 8s?
For me, he was actually one of the more straightforward ones, to me anyway. And I know I am one of these sort of detractors. I think he's a fine horse. He has every right to win. He has had one real good race as a 3-year-old, and it was 3 weeks ago. It's a lot. It's a lot. If this horse wins the Derby, it's going to be a Hall of Fame training job by Mark Cassidy and Norm Cassidy. It's going to be a Hall of Fame job for this horse to get fit and get right and ready mentally and physically for 10 furlongs against horses that really, most of them haven't had any real hiccups, along the lines. He can certainly win. I'm going to be using him probably defensively, but I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole at 4-1. But I wouldn't knock anybody that says he's just the best horse in the race. Let's transition real quick before we let you go, Peter Thomas Fornatale. Let's take a look at the Triple Crown draft that we were fortunate enough, or I was fortunate enough, to take part in. It was myself, you, Jonathan Kinchin, and Chris Larmy. And we drafted teams of 5. Anybody that's watching visually, you can take a look at the teams right now. Unfortunately, Jonathan has lost one of his runners, as Reach the World had to be euthanized last week after a catastrophic injury. I may not have another runner on here very shortly once Gervin goes, and for me it gets dangerous after that, because if Gervin scratches for some reason and Epicharis doesn't come for the Belmont, I'm left with a team of 3. You have the horse that I wanted all along, Irish Warcry. I guess this is going to be sort of 2 questions, 2 birds with 1 stone. Are you content with your team, and are you leaning toward Irish Warcry right now?
If I were to make a pick today, if this were starting, if we were doing it again and I had the first pick again, I'd still have Irish Warcry. And I do think he's going to be at least a square price. 8-1 now in the UK. I don't think he'll be that here at the windows. I'm very happy with him on top. I'm hoping Thunder Snow comes here, gets off the plane, looks the part. I'm hoping Conquest Mo Money can be a factor in the Preakness, and I'm hoping that Henson Sonneteer are the types who can maybe pick up pieces in either the Derby or a race like the Belmont down the line. I feel pretty good about my team. It's tough, though. I mean, looking at your team, having McCracken, I was just praying hope against hope that somehow he would have fallen through to the second round. You made a good case for Gunnevera, and Gormley, who's a horse. I'm sort of just taking the blanket position of following Kinchin's lead a little bit on this to be anti the SoCal contingent. But if you can sort of get over that mental hurdle and say, hey, here's a horse where the horse and rider figuring each other out. Maybe he can outrun his odds. I feel like even with the trouble you might end up facing with Epicharis and Gervin, you're at least in the hunt here. I'm feeling better looking at our 2 teams than I am looking over at what Chris Larmy and JK have at the minute.
It's going to be very fun to go through the Triple Crown campaign. As you can see, if you're watching, if you're just listening, I'll give you the rundown. Derby, Preakness, Belmont. First gets 12 points. Second gets 6. Third gets 3. We will obviously stay up on this thing all throughout the Triple Crown campaign and find out maybe somebody just kind of spread eagles this field and goes right to the top, or maybe it's a hard-fought battle all the way down to the end. Pete, tremendous job. I want to thank you. I know you obviously had your show earlier, the DRF Players Podcast, every Tuesday and Friday at 11 Eastern. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time here. Best of luck this weekend, and obviously if we don't talk before then, best of luck next Friday and Saturday in the Oaks and the Derby.
It's always a pleasure. We'll have special shows next week, Wednesday and Thursday at 11, going over the Oaks cards and Derby, respectively. I'll also be doing some handicapping sessions next Wednesday and Thursday night with a team of DRF All-Stars at 7 p.m. Look for the banners on the DRF.com to sign up for those. Matt, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Very good, my friend. We'll talk soon. We're going to take a break here really quick on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we're going to look at a couple of races coming up this Saturday afternoon. Stay with us.
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away, of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front.
12:25 on the East, 9:25 the West, the Matt Bernier Show on DRFTV. Thank you to Peter Thomas Fornatale again for giving us 15-20 minutes, chop up all sorts of different things, and obviously that big news here in the DRF tournament family, the DRF World Championship of Handicapping unveiled earlier this week. Got about 5 minutes. We're going to real quick breeze through a couple things. The two races that we went over last weekend, we're not going to go through video-wise. Charlestown Classic, it was a very interesting race over a sloppy track down at Charlestown. Thought the most likely winner, although it was a tight sort of grouping for me value-wise, the most likely winner was Imperative. I thought a live long shot was War Story. Imperative wins. War Story runs third. San Juan Capistrano going down the hill a mile and 3/4 at Santa Anita. I thought a live long shot was Rhinoceros Rex. Thought he would be forwardly placed off the claim from Mike Pender. He was. Unfortunately, couldn't see out the distance. He fades to run 5th out of 6. Let's dive into the two races that we're going to take a look at this weekend. If we could, let's start off with the San Francisco Mile. Let's take a look at the graphic right now. You've got a field of 7 in here. It's a little unfortunate that these two races are carded on the same day in the same state, owned by the same company, because you could have probably gotten a 12-horse field. Instead, you have 7 up north, 7 down south. Here is the northernmost contingent. 7 horses. Gigi Rider 6-1, Striker PhD 13-1, Pat Tentar 5-1, Many Roses 9-2, Camino del Paraiso 5-1, Alert Bay 4-1, and Star Student 13-1. I think it's a very interesting race. I think the most likely winner is Alert Bay. He's just an honest, hard hitter. He's going to show up and run his race, whether it's turf, whether it's dirt, whether it's synth, does not matter. My concern is I think he's just going to be overbet. I think everyone's going to look at it and say, all he does is run well. And look, he's one that you certainly need to use if you're playing any sort of exotic wagers. We actually have a Pick 4 video up on video.drf.com that you can take a look at. Dan and myself both use this horse for all the reasons I'm saying. He just shows up and runs his race. Wouldn't surprise at all if he were to win. But my actual pick in the race in my live long shot is Many Roses, the number 4 horse. Most recent start just got absolutely hooked in a ridiculous speed duel. The Timeform US pace ratings were just insane. 178, 175. He understandably tired down the lane. He gets a complete 180 as far as the pace scenario is concerned in this spot. He should be out there winging it on the front end. Hopefully they can relax him and rate a little bit. He's probably not as talented as the best horses, but it's the old adage, and it is truer than true. Pace makes the race. He's going to be out there. He should set, hopefully, a reasonable tempo. Maybe he can get it done. He's my pick at 9-2 in the San Francisco Mile. Let's go down to Santa Anita, the Grade 3 Thunder Road Stakes, another field of 7 in here. Look, this race is really an interesting one because Bolo, in many ways, is the key to everything. But right in post position order, the One Perfectly Majestic 6-1, 2020 Vision 12-1, Bolo 3-1, Myth Call 32-1, Fabatzi 5-1, Farhan 6-1, Sawyer's Hill 4-1. The most likely winner in the race is Bolo, but I'm not going to call him that. I'm actually going to call him a vulnerable favorite. We're going to take a look at his most recent start, and it was only 15 days ago. It was in the Makers 46 Mile. And look, he had a perfect trip. He's down on the inside in the blue cap, sitting about 3rd right now. You see Mike Smith getting into him, and he's just going up and down. There's nothing here for this horse. Carla Gaines said it right afterward. We are never shipping Bolo ever again, and I think that is a smart move because anytime he has shipped, he has run very, very poorly. But you can almost take it a step farther and say, anytime he's left Santa Anita, he's run poorly. This is a horse that even when he's gone to Del Mar, he hasn't run very well. He loves Santa Anita. 6 lifetime starts on the turf, 4 victories, a 2nd and a 3rd place finish. I'm going to call him a vulnerable favorite just because he is going to take a boatload of money, and I want him at no part of a price that is likely to be below even money. I made him 3-1. I think a live long shot in my pick in this race is Sawyer's Hill. Kristen Mulhall's done a fantastic job with this horse. Martin Pedroza, I think, is underrated and sneaky, the best front-end rider that you can find. He gets out there. He can get a horse to relax. I think there's a lot to like about this horse. He may not be good enough, but I sneaky think he's coming into this in good enough form. Pedroza gets him out there, and if he can set a rated pace, I think he can take the field gate to wire. I made Sawyer's Hill my live long shot, as well as my pick in the Grade 3 Thunder Road Stakes. Coming up here shortly, we're going to bring you to the DRF formulator race of the day. That is the Bewitch down at Keeneland. There is a major scratch in that race already. Arl is out. She figured to be even money or somewhat in that vicinity. She is scratched, so now you've got a field of 5. So factor that into your handicapping. And then after the race of the day, we're just going to cue it right up out of the gate. It's the new weekend handicapping show here at DRF. It's always up on video.drf.com, YouTube, as well as iTunes and SoundCloud if you just want to listen to the show. But we're going to start trying to do that, hopefully kind of just wheel this show right into it after the race of the day. So we've got that still to come. I want to wish best of luck to all of you that are listening, whether you're watching it live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter, or Facebook, whether you're listening to it, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Best of luck this weekend. Get ready, because next week, jam-packed, all sorts of stuff. Obviously, all the fun begins on Wednesday when you have the post-position draw for the Kentucky Derby. Friday, you have the Kentucky Oaks, and Saturday, you've got, obviously, I believe the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby down at Churchill Downs. Without further ado, the Friday formulator race today, and then stick around and watch Out of the Gate right after that. My name is Matt Bernier. Follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Best of luck. We will talk again next week.